At the end of the day, this man has more passion than the English Channel has water. And the thing he despises most, hello, fellow visionaries and awakened souls. Patrick here with Sovereign Empowerment, and thank you for joining us. We're so grateful to have you here. In this fifth and final episode of the Strawman to Lawman series, Damian continues his discussion about his own council tax case and how there are so many aspects of this case that you can apply to your own situations where your rights are being infringed upon. We put in a ton of time to deliver over 300 minutes of high-value content split into 5 episodes of the Strawman to Lawman series. And if you've been following along with us, you may feel as though you've been drinking from a fire hose. That's because each episode is packed to the gunnels with gold nuggets, suggestions, and accurate information you can actually apply to your own situation, whatever it may be. Damian has demonstrated through his own case studies how you can build empirical evidence to present and win your cases using the countless acts of Parliament going as far back as the 1700s. Now, if you haven't yet seen the previous episodes, I highly encourage you to go back and start with the first episodes, as they all tie in together to form a cohesive, collective resource that you can come back to time and time again. Now, here's the kicker. Damian's not a solicitor or an attorney. He didn't attend law school. In fact, he's an engineer.
Now if I connect the circuits together, wow!
Anyway, to say he's just an average bloke is a huge understatement. At the end of the day, this man has more passion than the English Channel has water. And the thing he despises most is seeing good folks taken advantage of by the corruption that plagues the land. And while he enjoys sharing his information and his wealth of knowledge with the masses, he'll be quick to tell you to do your own research. In fact, he has shown us that you don't have to have a huge fortune and spend it on learning to use the law to your benefit and protect yourself from being trampled on by the so-called officials. In fact, much of what he has gained came from the worldwide Google University. That's right, google.com. Look, there is a wealth of credible information, accurate data, and useful knowledge out there for the taking. You just have to take the time to research it. Now, that said, we do have an alternative resource for you thanks to our partnership with Dr. Frederick Graves, an attorney with almost 40 years of experience and practicing law. He is also the creator of the most trusted law course called Jurisdictionary: How to Win in Court. Now, while he is US based, his principles, techniques, and methodology apply to the UK as well. He's taught well over 50,000 people how to win in court without an attorney or solicitor. Even if you have a solicitor, this course will show you how to make them work harder for you and win your case. Folks, this course will teach you in a matter of just a few days what takes attorneys and solicitors years to accomplish. You'll discover the secrets to controlling judges like never before. Just imagine having the power to persuade and actually control judges regardless of the case or court you're in. The bottom line, Dr. Graves will teach you precisely how to win in court. You'll learn how to properly answer summons, how to construct your defense, how to file a motion, how to properly get your evidence into court, and ultimately, how to get your rights upheld in court of law and win your case. Look, I can go on and on here, but I know you're anxious to get to the video, and I'm anxious for you to see it as well. So there's a link down below that in the description that will take you to all the details. Now, before we get started here, if you do enjoy this video, please do us a solid and give us a thumbs up. Even better yet, if you could drop us a comment, we'd love to hear your thoughts. Also, Gavin and the crew have been busy shooting a lot of new content, so be sure to subscribe so that you don't miss any of it. Okay, that said, with no further ado, let's dive right in, shall we? Thanks again, and make it a great day.
Hey all, I thought I'd do a little video this morning because a lot of information flowing here, and I've come some way in putting together my lawsuit for my local authority with regards to council tax. I've realised that it's got so many applications with dealing with other infringements upon your rights, and understanding how to move against any incorporated or unincorporated entity or anybody depriving you of your rights, certainly under colour of law, secondary legislation, then it's important to understand how you got here. And in the same context, the people you're going up against in these councils are poorly trained, they're poorly educated, they've got no legal background, they've got no understanding, and a lot of the lawyers and solicitors you're going to come up against are not going to know this stuff. And this is why Gavin and I did a piece on statutory interpretation, the rules of interpretation that the judges have to follow, and this helps evidence and prove when you say, I'm not a resident, I'm not a taxpayer. If you needed to say, I'm not a parent, I'm a mother, a father. And I'll give an explanation of that, because I don't have any fear of using the word parent, because I understand that the parent is a creature of statute and it has statutory rights. So you can then use those statutory rights within the remedies of the acts, the legislation that is bound by, and the schools that you may come up against. But if your inherent indefeasible rights as a man, and I use that in the term of man and woman, we are the species of mankind, which would lead me on to something else that's going on, that you can shut down very quickly this whole gender identity Marxist ideology that's being pushed. And the reason it's being pushed, because if you accept it, then you will accept the unacceptable. And that's a very dangerous place to be. If you accept that there's 67 or 69 genders, that I was told at a barbecue recently by a fast asleep teacher, a nice lady, but I explained what I'm going to explain to you, and I said it's your duty to push back on that. I said, because if you accept the unacceptable, then they can push anything on you, okay? Which they're seeding into the minds of the public through the controlled media. Now, I'll just come on to that subject quickly, because this is important. And I'm going to explain how you shut that down, this whole transgender satanic ideology. It's anti-nature. A man cannot become a woman, and a woman cannot become a man. That's discernment and common sense. It's also anti-nature. And they're trying, with the AI, to basically impose a synthetic world, overlay it on top of the natural world. Okay, again, if you accept that, we're told to come out of Babylon, which that system is, and the AI being Lucifer, which is the bearer of light, the false light, their false god they worship, and cipher being information, which is why your information and data is the new currency for this AI system and this whole synthetic overlay that's going on. They're overlaying and bringing people in away from the natural world. So again, everything is a duality, good and bad, natural, synthetic, so on and so forth, which is why they moved us away from natural medicines, because our Creator has provided everything we need in nature for medicinal purposes, for any ailment. When you understand what we are and how we work on a frequency level. Now, with regards to this whole Marxist ideology, where we are being asked to accept the unacceptable in the form of 67 or 69 gender identities, always ask them this. I did this with my son's school, and I shut them down very quickly. I said, ask two questions. Say, in the species of man, in known science, it is widely accepted and understood that we are mammals. Okay? And ask them the question, do you accept that we are mammals? The answer will always be yes. They can't get past the empirical science that dictates that, their science. Okay? Now, in the world of mammals, in all the other mammals in nature, how many genders are there in those mammals? 2, male and female. So therefore, how could we be the only mammal that has 67 or 69? They can't get past that. You shut them down every time. We are mammals, and every other mammal in nature has 2 sexes, 2 genders, male and female. And that's going back to your foundation of truth. And the foundation of truth, the point of truth, is in nature. There are no lies in nature. Our politicians lie. The corporations lie. The media lies. But there's no lies in nature. So always come back to a foundation of truth. And this is what you do with law. So that's how you shut that down. Very quickly, ask them the questions and hold position. So the reason we've got into this mess is because we've identified with certain terms. Now, this is what we've drilled down on, the terminology. Drilled down on 2 things, which is the terms, the creatures of state that they've had us identify as, that the lawyers, solicitors, that these public servants that you're dealing with believe that we are. Now, we know that a resident, okay, is a person domiciled inside of the political subdivision and performing services in the political subdivision. That's fact, okay? Now, understanding that, I've got a lot of paperwork scattered around here, research, and using the rules of interpretation, you can prove that because you can't just say, I'm not a resident. You've got to provide evidence of why you're not. You've got to put that in your paperwork, okay? And a judge using the rules of interpretation and you understanding the rules of interpretation and putting that in the paperwork, they can't get past it. You shut them down. You have the judge always proceed in your favour because you're putting in the facts in law. Now, understanding that a resident is a creature of statute under the legislator, and being a creature of statute, it has statutory rights. It cannot be a man with substantive constitutional rights. Okay? So this is what I'm saying. You've got to understand how we got here. That's a resident. All right? A taxpayer. Right, I've got to find that. So the other thing with a resident, it's not just what it is, it's what it does. So not only are you not a resident, you are not performing services. So this is where the business element comes in. Do you have a taxable business status with the council? No. If you've done your record requests, your DSARs, you can prove that they've got no evidence of a tax return, of a business registration or a business license. Yes? This is where you have to build up your case using freedom of information requests and using data subject access requests. You build this up, you prove your case. So you can prove that A, you're not a resident because you don't meet the definition of that term, okay? B, you don't perform the duties or services of that definition. And you can prove that because you don't have a business registration, a license, or a taxable status set up with the council or the legislator. So then, understanding that, and this is the other thing with a parent, funnily enough, I got the very definition of how they see a parent in legislation. I got this from the school yesterday. The definition of a parent includes any person. You understand what that is, and using ejusdem, if I can find it, hold on, where have I? Ejusdem generis, general words following enumeration of personal things. So it's and nociter associs, which is words are known by the company they keep. Well, in Black's Law Dictionary, you'll see the terminology is all to do with incorporated or unincorporated businesses and legal entities. You can prove that. Okay, again, you prove. So a parent includes any person having all the rights, this is important, duties and powers. Right, where have we heard that? That sounds like a natural person, which would make you believe that's you, which it isn't, okay? You're the species of mankind, man, and a people, and the people are the sovereign. All power is derived from us. It's the same. I always inform, when I deal with a local authority, I explain to them, listen, your authority is limited and delegated, and it's derived from us, your local population. That's it. Let them know where they stand. Now, with regards to a natural person, and the fact that a parent is defined as including any, which means it's inclusive, it's everything that's within this description. Again, the words. Any person having all the rights, duties, powers. Right, duties. So they're performing services, aren't they? All right, like a natural person is actually defined as a public servant, a statutory officer within the council, your local governing officer, your police officer. It's somebody with an official title performing services. But it's not a man or a woman with substantive constitutional rights. All right? That's where you have to separate. You have to understand, what are they doing? Other groups, some fantastic groups, by the way, have attacked the fact that the obligation, but you've got to go a bit deeper here. You've got to understand, this is why I've drilled down on jurisdiction, okay? And their action against you, the claim that they're putting on your properties, is a proceeding in rem, okay? Now, a proceeding in rem is in effect a proceeding against the owner, us, as well as a proceeding against the goods. And for his breach of the law, which has to be proven to establish the forfeiture. Yes? So they're bringing, clearly, they're saying that they have in rem jurisdiction over your property. In rem is a thing, property. Now, for them to bring a proceeding in rem, the legislator or the local government has to have an interest in your property. They have to have a taxable interest, but you can prove they haven't got that. Again, back to your record request. Or an ownership interest. They've got neither. We have an inherent right to own property. And you can go back to property rights in Blackstones, going back to the 17th century. You can go online and look at that. But basically what they're doing, you've got to pull the whole thing apart. You've got to come back to, how are they doing this? Break it down. Come back to point one, whole position. And you're pulling it all apart and explaining this to them, because they don't know. Otherwise, they wouldn't be doing what they're doing. They don't know why. They'll always just point to the Local Government Finance Act. This gives us a right to do that. But we understand that that right is prescribed, and they're moving under presumption and assumption. You're removing that presumption and assumption, not by saying, I remove the presumption and assumption. You're doing it by stating your case, the facts in law, and using the rules of interpretation, and using the fact that they don't have the jurisdiction. They are moving an in rem action against your property. Now, we understand that the legislator has no taxable interest or ownership interest in your property. Therefore, it can't confer that power to local government. And they're moving under an act that says it's by presumption and assumption. And you're not engaged in commerce there, provably. So you can prove through using the rules of interpretation that you're not the creature of statute with statutory rights and duties. You are not performing services in their political subdivision. And you don't meet any of the definitions of a taxpayer. So understanding that your local council is a creature of the state, a creature of statute, possessing only the powers of government that are expressly granted to it. Or if the legislator doesn't have the power to tax your property, neither do they. Right? Now, they are literally moving an in rem action, saying they have in rem jurisdiction over your property without any appearance of due process or the rule of law. And they cannot exercise rights in your property that they don't possess, the legislator doesn't possess. This is important. That should have broken that down for you. You've got to get this right in your mind, that there's a lot of play here. I hope that's explained. And you can come in and out of these roles if you understand the legislation and you want to enforce your statutory rights, as I did with George under the Consumer Rights Act 2015. Then that's the approach you do. You can, as a parent, decide that you're just going to go, instead of with your unalienable, inherent, indefeasible, constitutionally protected rights, which is the highest above all of this, because we created government. And that legal maxim, he who creates owns and controls. Understanding, see, for example, my little spat, it wasn't a spat, they had a spat at me for taking my children out of school during term time. And I explained that, okay, I'll identify as a parent this time round because I'll enforce my statutory rights within the context of this legislation that you're using, which is the Education Act 1996, which clearly states, and they proved that they hadn't read it. And I said to them, you haven't read this, have you? Obviously, because it says here that I can, because I have an understanding that the legislator can't tell me what I can do or what I can't do with my property. They can't do that. They then can't confer that power to the school. Okay? I just used my statutory rights, the lowest rights. You're in the weeds with them. But I understand the legislation. I knew how to use it against them, where it used the purposely ambiguous term. You have to have them in an education setting or otherwise. And I explained, well, that otherwise means I can homeschool them, I can school them on holiday, I can school them wherever I okay? And there's nothing you can do about it. It says here, this protects me, not you, okay? That's how you've got to move. Now, I hope this has been helpful and informative, and I wish you a good day. God bless.